My name is Emiliano Reinares. I'm specialized on ontologies, and I work in IQVIA since the last year. And well, in this opportunity, I want to present one of the outcomes of our work on the real-world data space. It's a teamwork made by myself, Andrea, and also Han. And it's called, well, a metadata profile to promote this kind of data, real-world data. So along this presentation, I will define real-world data, for us at least, its value and main use cases. I will describe two of the main challenges we need to tackle to make use of this data. I will present the two approaches we can reuse for this purpose, and will describe the main aspects of our work. And we'll conclude with a summary of results, further lines of development, and also a call to action for interested parties. So real-world data is collected routinely from a variety of data sources, from clinical observations, medication claims, and social media feeds. And it's on patient health status or the delivery of healthcare. And this is opposed to the data typically retrieved from clinical trials. And well, the value of this data resides on its potential to provide an holistic view of people's health. And we can see here 4 of the main use cases for this data. It can be used, for instance, to increase the efficiency of drug discovery by identifying unmet medical needs, by optimizing the design of clinical studies, by informing benefit-risk assessment. It can also be used to expand on level indication of product by showing effectiveness of these products in populations and also under certain diseases or conditions. It can make healthcare system more sustainable by supporting evidence-based decision-making, comparative effectiveness research, to make health technology assessment or pharmacovigilance. And it could also be used to support the approval and market access of new drugs, for instance, by showing their safety, efficacy, and cost effectiveness in real-world settings. However, the heterogeneity, volume, and dynamism of this kind of data create mainly 2 technical challenges. The first one is about finding the data, but also how to integrate this data with other sources or standards. On the first side, on finding data, we see that we need of effective metadata. And here we understand metadata as descriptive data that characterize other data to make it understandable both in terms of meaning, but also fit for purpose. And in this regard, the heads of medicine agencies and also the European Medicine Agency developed a list of metadata fields for real-world data catalogs. They also proposed a guide of good practices for the usage of this metadata. And they defined a real-world data dedicated chapter of the data quality framework for the EU medicines regulation. On the other side, on integrating data, we need to harmonize format, standards, and terminologies. And in this case, ODC has created the OMOP common data model to tackle this issue. But for us, a list of abstract metadata is not enough to tackle these challenges. We think that we need a specific metadata vocabulary for real-world data that would allow us to define a specific metadata element, both in a syntactic and semantic fashion. We also need a metadata vocabulary model to describe the relationships between those elements, but also to describe the constraints. And also that model could be used to enable the alignment with other metadata standards that are already available. So having all of this, a machine-actionable model would also allow us to query and process both the metadata and the data. And there are 2 approaches we can reuse for this purpose. On the left side, we see the data catalog vocabulary, or DCAT. It's an structured vocabulary. It was developed by the W3C, and it's used to describe data assets. So it comprises classes, properties, and constraints defined using the RDF language. It also reuses other vocabularies, like the Dublin Core one. and it's extensible. So you can propose new classes, properties, constraints, but also reuse other vocabularies and provide new access mechanisms. And the DCAT application profile for European data portals is an example of this kind of extension. On the other side, we see the schema.org. It's a markup vocabulary. In this case, it was launched by Google, Yandex, Bing, and Yahoo. And in this case, it's used to describe web resources. Also define different types of information and their corresponding properties. And it's also extensible. So you can define your own, again, types, properties, and constraints. And bioschemas is an example of this extension. It creates different specific elements for the biology space. So we see that both of them have similarities. Basically, they are domain agnostic. But at the same time, they present some differences on the technical design of the vocabulary, but also on the use cases. DCAT, for instance, it's used to describe data assets, data sets, and data services, while schema.org is used to describe web resources like people, events, web pages, books. On the technical design side, we see that DCAT was envisioned to define complex objects. So for instance, a data catalog could comprise other data catalogs. While schema.org defines simple objects, it has a more simple and flatter structure. So our proposal, it's a metadata profile for real-world data, extending DCAT. And this would allow us to, again, to define syntactically and semantically the metadata elements, but also their relationships and their constraints. And the goal is to overcome both issues, the findability by enabling the description of the assets, but also the integration issues by supporting the alignment with other standards that could be available. And in this slide, we can see the main aspects of our proposal. We extended DCAT by adding classes, properties, and constraints. So on the right side, we see the patient group class and their descendants that are used to describe patient group features of a given data set, either by age or by gender. We also added properties like disease or therapeutic area, biomarker or healthcare setting, again, to describe those features on a given data set. We also make mandatory some of the previously defined properties like identifier, title, and description. And we propose as well a design pattern that allows to extend this profile, but also to avoid an explosion on the number of properties. So we see a linkage between the dataset class and the qualified existential class. And this enables us to describe the presence or absence of a certain feature on a given dataset through two properties. The first of them is a Boolean. The second one is a custom and extensible vocabulary called a dataset feature. The summary of the results. Okay, we can recognize that real-world data could enable multiple healthcare and life sciences use cases. At the same time, there are at least two main challenges we need to tackle: the findability and integration of the data. And to overcome those issues, we propose a metadata profile to tackle at this stage mainly the findability-related challenges. We envision at least 3 further lines of development for this work. First of all, the alignment of the profile with the metadata vocabulary I mentioned before, that proposed by the European Medicine Agency. Also, a second line of work could be to reuse the real-world data chapter of the data quality framework to describe quality aspects of both data and metadata. The third one is about the extension of schema.org. We could consider to extend this vocabulary by adding real-world data specific terms. And in this case, we can leverage the experience of a schema, but also some of the mappings that we are proposing in the DCAT specification. And that's all, that's a wrap. But I would also like to emphasize that this is work in progress. So we are looking for collaborations. And if you are interested or you feel appealed by this work, you can contact us at this email, ontologies@icubia.com. And that's all. Thank you for your time, for your attention. Of course, I'm open for questions. Thanks.
Hello, Pantelis Natsiavas from Greece. Very interesting work. Actually, last night, Achilles and I were uploading metadata on the repository of Eden, the European initiative facilitating conversion of real-world data in OMOP-CDM. And I know that the Odyssey ecosystem has built a module called Arachne, which could be used as an inventory of real-world data sources. And I was wondering if you have, how do you position your work against Arachne? I mean, have you investigated, have you checked if your work could be used? Because in my view, it would be fantastic to use it as part of Arachne or something like that.
As I said before, we are looking for collaboration. That could be a potential entry point for this kind of this initiative. And yes, I was not aware of that tool. But yeah, we could consider it.
Great work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hiya, thank you. Have you approached the Pistoia Alliance? Because I know that real-world data is one of their priorities. So it might be quite a good sort of forum to put that sort of standard out there.
Yes, IQVIA is one of the members of the Pistoia Alliance. We are on the discussion about this kind of initiative. So yes, that's another, not a technical further line of development, but in terms of collaboration and how to proceed with expanding this idea, yes, that's a forum to tackle. Yeah.
Great, cool.
So schema.org has a big branch dedicated to healthcare. Have you already considered that bit in your model?
Yes, but when I review schema.org, that specific chapter, the entities that are described there are too general. So it requires further refinement. You can consider that, for instance, IQVIA is one of the main providers of real-world data worldwide. And only that catalog has more than 200 metadata elements with a very high level of granularity. So yes, that's one of the potential line of development, to extend schema.org to include those details.